Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. And I am pleased to be joined by Louis Addeo-Weiss, the individual who helped me get this show started. How you doing tonight, Louis?
I'm doing good, Scott. How's it going?
Oh, it's going really good, Louis. Glad to have you back on the show. And alongside tonight is Rick Curti. What's up, Mr. Curti?
Hey, guys. How's everything?
Oh, everything is going all right. Well, you guys all into what we got to talk about tonight? A lot of developments that just took place in the last hour, and we'll get right to it.
Bring it on.
All right. It looks like MLB PA rejected the 60-game season proposal 33-5 by the executive committee. All right, Louis, you go ahead and lead off with this one.
I mean, look, I've kind of mulled over in my head a million times over the past couple of months, really since spring training ended about 3 months ago, whether or not we were going to have a season. And at this point, I just told you right before we went on, it's best that they at least come to an agreement regardless of whether or not the coronavirus escalates. And again, a lot of the CDC is going to dictate a lot of this. But in my opinion, and I'm sure both of you would agree, baseball missed a very big opportunity to kind of rebrand itself and be the first sport to come back prior to the NBA and the NFL, kind of saying what they were going to be doing tentatively moving forward. And I think a lot of that just comes down to Manfred. I think Manfred's just done an absolutely terrible job. And you know what? Some of the criticism that's fallen upon him is a bit unfair. If the players were really empathetic and understood that we have, upwards of 35 million Americans not working right now, they would understand that playing 60 games at prorated salary at least would make sense, given there's probably not going to be fans in the stands, and if there are, it's going to be in very limited capacities. Scott, you probably saw this in the 94 strike when players were just kind of being selfish and prioritizing their financial needs over, the people who pay, upwards of $70 a person when you include ticket and food to go see a game. It's like, I don't think the players are cognizant of that, and I think it's really going to hurt them in the long run. Coronavirus, I think, is going to destroy baseball rather than, us taking advantage of at least being able to do something to put the game back in the public sphere with a much more forever, and it just hasn't happened.
Good points, Louis. Go ahead, Rick, and then I'll chime in on what Louis had to say.
Yeah, this is not no big surprise, it's just unfortunate. They're so greedy right now on both sides. I remember Terry Pendleton during the 94 strike saying that he's only making $7 million a year, and how that was he had to survive off that. Nobody's going to care about these multi-millionaires getting paid ridiculous amount of guaranteed money to play a game, and this is going to be worse than the 94 baseball strike. They are going to totally lose all their fans. Their attendance has dropped the last 6 years in Major League Baseball. It's not one of the top sports anymore. Football and basketball and probably hockey have taken over baseball. This is totally bad for them. They had a great opportunity to bring America's pastime back, and they could have been working with Manfred. They could have said, yeah, I'll take a pay cut and make only $4 million a year and play in an empty stadium. We need to bring baseball back, and they're not, because they're only thinking about themselves. They're thinking about all the money they've lost and everything, and the whole coronavirus thing is just an excuse for them to not want to play. It's just all about greed right now. They could play right now if they wanted to, whether it's a 50-game, 75-game, 100-game schedule, but it's all about greed, and it's all about, I'm only making $3 million a year, and it's really quite shameful and disgusting, to be quite honest.
Both of you guys make some really, really good points. Okay, first of all, you're right, Louis. I lived through the 1994 baseball strike, and that was absolutely bad. Bear in mind, Bud Selig, the baseball commissioner, former owner of the Milwaukee Brewers, was determined to break that union, and they nearly had to go out there, and there was a possibility of replacement players. So there's no question that you never know. I mean, Rob Manfred, to me, does he look bad? On the surface it may be, but it takes two sides to make an agreement. It really, really does. And when you look at the fact that it's really Rob Manfred versus Tony Clark, which one's going to go ahead and persevere in this dispute? I don't know. All I can tell you is the end result is the 1994 baseball strike is going to look bad, and I think this is definitely a repeat of it. So I agree with both of you. I mean, COVID-19 to me is all well and dandy. It's wrecked the whole sports world to begin with. But Rick mentioned the key word, greed. Nobody's feeling sorry for these players. Now, I will tell you, and I know we'll talk about it as we go on, what the owners don't want to have to lose $640,000 a game. That, to me, is not a good business plan. So I can appreciate where the owners are coming from. So that's my take on it. So, Louis, why don't we continue to elaborate on the issues with MLB and MLBPA?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, there were also reports that were kind of percolating around Twitter the last couple of weeks about there were upwards of, say, 6 to 8 owners who didn't even want to play the season.
Right.
And my opinion on that is if you're an owner of a professional sports team, I understand that you're going to come from it with a very business-centric mindset. You know, like, obviously, like, you were a businessman prior to owning a franchise, so your mindset is making money and making money however that is possible. But if you're owning a professional sports team, you're going to take on the risks such as these of public health crises and even the possibility of a players' strike. To say you don't want to play a season, to me, should be enough for you to have to forfeit ownership of your team. You're going to lose money. That's kind of like a no-brainer there. Everybody understands that. If you're not going to have fans in the stands, you're not going to be selling, merchandise. You're not going to be selling food, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, like, you still owe the public, working, blue collar kind of people who, they work 40-hour weeks. They don't make the money that you guys do. You at least owe them the product to be put onto the field, whatever kind of capacity that's in. I mean, to say you don't want a season just because you're not going to make money when you have enough money to survive 100 million lifetimes is absolutely, it's abhorrent. I think it's disgusting. I think, as owners look awful in this. I mean, the owners don't want to pay that $1 billion grievance that the PA filed against them. But at the end of the day, you owe it to the fans, the people who have been loyal to franchises going back generations, to at least play. I mean, how boring is it every weekend or every day you get home? Like, you have a tough day at work. Sports are kind of like that mediator, that thing that kind of keep us sane, something we can look forward to. I mean, look at 9/11, baseball was big post 9/11. I mean, Piazza's home run against the Braves in 2001 in that first game back. You have, moments like that, when a nation is still grieving. I mean, when we're all kind of, dealing with this right now and trying to process everything that's going on, baseball can use that opportunity to, give fans some solace and something to look forward to. But if you have players saying they don't want to play because they're not going to make enough money, and owners saying they don't want to play because they're not going to make, the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars that they want to make, it's disgusting. It just goes back to that notion of greed. It's just honestly sickening.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I totally agree. They could have totally said, we're not going to play because of COVID-19, and, we're not going to put our players at risk. We're not going to put our fans at risk. I totally agree. I mean, I've been saying since April that we're not going to have any sports in 2020, and now we're definitely not going to have a baseball season because it's all about themselves. It's all about money. Every one of them is going to lose money. The question is, how much money are we going to lose? And I don't mind taking, I would love to have a job where I only make $4 million a year and play a game. But, like I said, this is going to ruin professional baseball. They've already lost fans. They've lost, the young fans. They've lost African-American fans because they're all into football and basketball now. Look what basketball is doing. They wanted to play. It got pushed back because of course, the increase of COVID-19. Hockey was going to start going, and they all seem to get together, but yet Major League Baseball has fouled this up so bad, and they're not going to remember them not having a season because of COVID-19. They're going to remember because here we go again with 1994. And, it took years for them to rebound with the whole, McGuire-Sosa home run race. So, it's just, this is going to kill baseball. It really is going to kill baseball, and they have nobody to blame but themselves.
Well, let me tell you this, Louis. I know you're coming down hard on the owners, and that's fine. But here's my issue with what you're saying, Louis, okay? That's what you're saying is all well and good for the big market teams, but don't tell me about that for the small market teams that don't have the checkbook that the bigger ones. So I know where you're coming from. And don't tell me about the Kansas City Royals, the Pittsburgh Pirates, that these franchises can afford to lose money. They can't. They don't have the big TV deals. Okay, the big markets probably could absorb it. Smaller ones, Louis, I don't agree with you on that whatsoever. I really don't. I mean, I mean, think about it. You think the Milwaukee Brewers are another smaller market team, So, in my opinion, you have to be able to differentiate the big markets and the small and what they can't. So, to me, do you think it's better, Rick? I'll throw this to have baseball or no baseball in 2020. What do you think, Rick?
They should have no baseball. They should have no sports in 2020. It's too risky, to have games. I'm not talking about, losing money. I'm talking about people getting sick and dying because they only have one life. And I've been saying this, they need to shut down the whole season and all sports and just focus on 2021. NFL needs to do the same thing. They need to, stop with this whole, we might have just forget about it. This whole season is a wash. Let's be safe. Let's use common sense. It's a $1 billion business is Major League Baseball, and just forget about it. This whole season is done with, and it's all about people's safety. So to me, there should be no sports for 2020.
All right, but focus on baseball for a moment. And I agree with you, Rick. We've talked about that a lot with Mel Farr when we've had him on too. To me, I couldn't really get interested in a 48-game season. 60 would have been where my breaking point is. Louis, okay, let's talk about game size. What do you think in your mind, would be the limit where you go? 60 games, the owners aren't going to do any more than that, but give me a number, Louis.
I mean, so you did make the argument that a lot of small market teams don't have the massive TV deals,
right?
That and Fauci has said that there is going to be expected to be a larger kind of a further outbreak of the virus in October. So I've heard, I'm 70 games is what the PA wanted, and Manfred was too stubborn to kind of finagle over 10 games. He said 60 was kind of like the take it or leave it scenario.
Right.
At this point, if you played 60 games, they expected spring training to start next week. That's not going to happen. I mean, the Mets and the Yankees have just had to move their spring training, sites to New York because of outbreaks of coronavirus outbreaks down here. I mean, there was outbreaks at the Blue Jays camp, Astros camp, Yankees camp, Mets camp. Pretty much every camp is kind of being cleansed right now. To start spring training, say they had a tentative start date of June 29th. Scott, today's the 22nd. That's literally a week from today. Are we going to get an agreement in the next week? I have absolutely no idea. At this point, you need one to kind of save yourself. Baseball's kind of fallen on its face 150 times in the last 3 weeks. To at least have that tentative agreement would make sense. But 60 games is appropriate because you need to understand this. If you start spring training in late June, early July, you're not going to start the season until at least mid-July, right? And then you're going to have 60 games, which is about 2 months worth of games. You need to factor in off days. So you're going to try to shoot to end around the end of September. Guys aren't going to be 100% warm, but at the end of the day, they have expanded playoffs that they're trying to implement. They wanted to implement a universal DH, so players can get at, positionless players can really get at bats in the National League. 60 games would have been fine. There's something kind of interesting about a tournament style play with a shortened season, but you kind of just have to play with what the scenarios, the situation that presents itself. What I'm thinking about a lot is the tentative free agents who are going to get absolutely slaughtered on the free agent market. Mookie Betts was supposed to make $400 million going into free agency. Do you honestly think he may even want to play for the Dodgers in a 50-60 game schedule? No. George Springer, who fell victim to service time with the Astros, they called him up a week late into the season so they would get an extra year of service time. He's going to lose almost $150 million because one of this season, and then two, just the service time manipulation that's gone on against him. So we haven't even discussed the idea that some guys may not even want to play when the season resumes. One, the fear of actually getting sick and contaminating their families, but two, if you have a bad 50-game season, if you're a pitcher and you have 10 to 12 terrible starts and you're a free agent, what is a team going to think when you become a free agent? What is a team going to think of an outfielder who hits 220 over 50 games? Like, the risk of, like, getting sick and then the fact that you may even just lose even more money in, like, the next 7 to 10 years, depending on what contract you get in free agency. Like, I mean, again, tentatively, they should at least agree to a season, and people will play regardless. I mean, if baseball is baseball, and, like, to say you get to play Major League Baseball, there's not many of us that get to say that. So, again, yeah, just agree. I don't care how many games it is. I mean, I want baseball in some capacity in 2020. Do I think we're going to have it? No. I mean, like, just given the way things are, would I be surprised if, in 2 weeks they just cancel the season altogether? Absolutely not. But, like, never say never, right?
No, I agree. And Louis, you make a lot of good points with what you said. Service time does have to factor into this equation. I think the best situation for contracts is that all players that are under contract for 2020, and those contracts should carry over to 2021. They haven't collected any of that money anyways, have they? So you might as well. I mean, what advantage would it be for Mookie Betts to move to another team? It would make no sense. No numbers would be better than bad numbers. That's how I look at it. But yeah, service time, that's always been a point of contention. Me personally, I think they should just cancel the season altogether and be done with it. Because like you said, baseball is already taking a hit with their reputation anyhow. So, wash 2021. I mean, so would you put an asterisk around any title or statistics that you would have, Louis, for 2020? I know Rick's answered it many times, so it's your chance to pretty much answer this on your own.
I mean, remember in like 1994 when obviously the season ended prematurely due to a strike. Tony Gwynn ended the season hitting .394, and everybody kind of at the time, they thought, like given the way that he was kind of like a bat-to-ball hitter, him and Wade, he was like the National League's Wade Boggs, right? Of like low power, but he's going to hit for high average. He's not going to strike out. They thought he was going to hit 400, and obviously, the season was cut short, and he didn't do that. But say somebody hits like 450 games, do we say that's the first person to hit 400 since Ted Williams? No, because Chipper Jones hit over 400 until like mid-June in 2008. But, like that, and he played up to, I think he played like 80 games at that point. Nobody said he hit 400. I mean, yeah, the idea of an asterisk is interesting, but again, like I've thought about that too, mulled over like MVPs and Cy Young Awards. Like if we have like a Cy Young Award winner, he's going to make like 12 to 13 starts. Like it's crazy to think about, but again, like you kind of just have to play with like what's given to you. I mean, like you eat off the plate that your parents put in front of you for dinner that night. So, and if you complain, you don't eat. And in that way, like if you have a problem with it, you just don't play. But I mean, if they cancel the season, like nobody's gonna be surprised. But baseball would just look absolutely worse than it already does, and I think Manfred would probably be outed as commissioner if he were to just call it a wash within the next week. He would be absolutely like within the next year when that CBA expires, he's not baseball's commissioner moving forward. I absolutely don't think that's possible.
Yeah, but I will tell you this though. I don't have a problem with all the awards being given out because the awards are just the awards. It's just a piece of hardware. Now the numbers I do have a problem with because then that would be considered asterisk, or you don't really care about the numbers. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll stop you there for a second. Think about this.
Yeah.
So and Rick, I want you to chime in on this too.
Okay.
It's weird the way that a lot of baseball fans gauge somebody's Hall of Fame candidacy. Like, I'll give you an example, and I heard about this today, and it's somebody who I don't think is a Hall of Famer, but he's going to get in just because of the impact that he's had at his respective position, minus, like, what sabermetrics say. Yadier Molina. Yadier Molina will probably be a Hall of Famer. He's not going to, in my opinion, I don't think he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer because a lot of the offensive numbers are very lacking. But the impact he's had on the Cardinals, he's taken them to 4 World Series. He's won 2. He's been a great defensive catcher, one of the better defensive catchers in the last 50 years. But offensively, he's not a great catcher. He never won an MVP award. The one year he came closest was 2012. Buster Posey won the MVP. If a player wins an MVP in a 50-game season and we're gauging their Hall of Fame candidacy in 25 years when they're on the ballot, are we going to really say that MVP was that important in gauging, their credibility to get into Cooperstown? No, because that gets back to the argument that judging players and individual accolades is stupid when you're gauging Hall of Fame enters. I mean, Dale Murphy, people think should be in the Hall of Fame because he won 2 MVPs. But again, a lot of the numbers suggest it's not enough, and it's the same thing. If you win an MVP in 50 games, there should be an asterisk against it because it's not. I mean, it's a full season by the merit of the circumstances that were presented to us, but and theoretically, it's not a full season. It's not 162 games, or you're not playing at least 90% of those games.
Right.
So I mean, there's a lot to think about. There's a million different angles. That's why I think this is such a fascinating conversation.
Right.
But no, I mean, I honestly don't think you're not going to have awards this year. What's the MVP going to hit? 15 home runs this year? What is this?
Right.
1887? It's strange. It is strange. It's like getting up every day and not seeing the probable starting pitchers, or you're not seeing game notes. I mean, we should be in the midst of the NBA Finals should be over right now. Mickey Mouse is going to be doing backflips in Disney World within the next month when basketball starts again. So I mean, look, it's all I'm going to say before we move on to the next topic is it's weird. I haven't been here for a while, so I obviously haven't had a chance to chime in. But I mean, this is the strangest summer of sports. I mean, I can't wait in 20 years when they make E60 about the summer of 2020 and just COVID summer and what it did to sports. I mean, the effects not only on the world and on sports, it's going to be profound, and it already is.
Well, hey, listen, you could make a case of the Hall of Fame candidacy, that's for sure. But let me tell you but when you've had shortened seasons due to the baseball strike, okay, they handed out awards anyways. That was the year the Expos had a chance to their best team ever, and baseball went downhill after the 1994 strike. It destroyed it in Montreal. So, there's a lot of different ways.
Yeah, you're right.
But the awards are handed out.
There was only a 10-game difference, I believe. There was only 154 games they played in 95. So, I mean, you could gauge that as a more legitimate season, but I mean, 50 games compared to that's like
true.
eating 6 slices of pizza and saying eat 2, that's your full season. You know what I mean?
Well, but at that particular point, we both know, and you're right, you haven't been on here a while, which is why I'm glad that you are speaking up the way you are. You make a lot of valid points, Louis, in a lot of different ways, but awards are going to get handed out. So it's worth talking about. It's anytime you have stimulating debate conversation, that's always healthy, because that way we let our listeners go out there and create their own opinions based on what we throw at them. So, again, awards are going to get handed out if there's a season. How will they work toward Hall of Fame? I don't know. But for the player, at least he's got one anyhow. Does it mean anything? Probably not. But, so there's a lot of different ways that you can look at that dynamic for sure. So, good points, Louis. All right, so let's go on to the next thing, okay? As we continue the coronavirus talk, the spring training facilities are closed. And yes, if there is any spring training, they'll be in the respective home areas, although you got to wonder about the Tampa Bay Rays and the Miami Marlins, who are in a state. And, of course, then you think about the fact that you've got the Arizona Diamondbacks in another state, which is the cases are rising. And California has several teams. So you got about, how many teams we got in California? Got at least 4, right?
You got 5 in California.
Right, yeah.
Angels, Oakland. They got
5 teams in California.
Yeah, Padres.
Right. 5 there.
So 5.
6. We got a total of 8 teams affected by high hotspots. So you're right. So how do you really quantify that? I know at one point in time, David Levin and I had a broadcast about comparing the Cactus League versus the Grapefruit League, and then realigning the divisions, and then from the realigning the divisions, then you wonder if there'd ever be any future realignment that would make sense in those divisions of the Cactus. Again, we've had a lot of interesting conversations about that. So, Louis, give us your perspective about the coronavirus and the spring training facilities closure. You certainly talked about it, so go ahead and elaborate.
I mean, it is what it is. You if you can't spring train in those states because of the outbreak, then that's terrible. I mean, if you think about this, take this into context. You said the outbreaks. You and me are living in Florida. We understand, and we're kind of living it every day. with, the cases being, upwards of 4,000 new cases every single day down here. 17 of the 30 teams spring train down here. And then you go to Arizona, another state like Florida with a much hotter but drier climate. Viruses tend to exist in hot climates. The other 13 teams spring train there too. So, it doesn't bode well. At the end of the day, though, where are you going to... you can't really have neutral sites. There's already players that have come out and said, notable players who Clayton Kershaw's come out and said, I'm not going to leave my family for 4 months just so I can play a season, at a spring training stadium in front of no fans. And he's not saying that to be selfish. He's saying that because he's a father. He's a new father again. He just had a third child. You don't want to abandon your family for 4 months. You can't see your family for extended periods of time. Again, I think just given the virus, the severity of it, and the way that it's hitting people and the propensity at which it's affecting people, like I said earlier, you're just going to have a bevy of players who are just going to say, I don't want to play this year. And you can't fault them for that. You can't send them to the principal's office when they have a legitimate reason not to, right? Don't mark someone's party if they have a note. And in this case, don't get upset or fine a player for not playing when there's literally a public health crisis. Think about another player, Carlos Carrasco, the Cleveland Indians, recovering from leukemia. If you have illnesses such as, if you had cancer, if you have diabetes, you're a lot more susceptible to, immune diseases like this. He said he wants to play. He did an interview with Pedro Gomez about a month ago. Is that the safest thing? Absolutely not. But it's things that you have to take into account when you consider even playing a season. Again, they need the agreement just to at least avoid looking foolish in the players, to at least not look as selfish as they already do. But there's not. This thing has persisted for so long that I really don't think there's going to be a season this year. And you know what? When that update comes through my phone that the 2020 season is canceled, I'll have a bevy of emotions that'll run through me. It'll be a mixture of both sadness and kind of a sense of being very anticlimactic. I'm not surprised. It's just given, how bad this thing really is.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, withstanding all the bad pub that both sides, MLB, PA, as well as the MLB are looking here, and I think you're right, Louis and Rick, canceling baseball is the most sensible way to do it. But, if for no other reason coronavirus helps them out, okay, then they get a mulligan here. Coronavirus, you have a public health crisis, no problem. I can handle that, okay? Because, again, we've talked about throughout the broadcast, okay, other sports are really at a crossroads, so to me, if it cancels because of coronavirus in the end, because both sides, you're talking about players' health and safety, right? Then, to me, you get a mulligan. But and I don't blame any player that doesn't want to do it, especially the fact that we're not further along on the medicals and the science to make it justifiable. But all sides look bad right now, no matter whether we think there should be a season or no season. You blow the 2021 season, oh goodness, this gets worse. But if you lose 2020, I think people will look another way. They will look the other way. If by now you haven't had it, how much have you really missed it anyhow? You think I wouldn't watch a season for 48 games? No way. I wouldn't. 60's my limit.
It's just the entry. It's baseball as opposed to no baseball. Even if you're watching a team like the 2013 Marlins when they're historically bad, you're still watching your favorite sport regardless. If you're watching your Detroit Tigers when they're only expected to win 57 games this year, you're still watching your favorite sport if it is your favorite sport. Again, the analogy I've kind of drawn is doing something that is inherently wrong, but you enjoy doing it. It's I don't know, a kid burns his hand on a stove, yet he goes again and he puts his hand on the stove to burn himself. We want baseball, but we understand the consequences that come with it the same way a kid should understand that you put your hand on the stove, you're going to burn yourself. So, our yearning and our wanting kind of out is if we play, our yearning will outweigh the logic that sits behind not having a season this year. But you know what? Like, money is evil, man. And I'll tell you this: like, those owners ain't gonna run from money. If they can make money any way they can, they will. So, I mean, and you know what? Guess what, guys? I literally just got an update right now. The commissioner is going to impose a 60-game season. Oh, so, like I said, we have a tentative agreement. Breaking news. But
we'll see how that goes. Well, because a lot of players say, "I don't think so. Ain't going to happen."
I'm sure like I said, there's going to be a bevy of players that don't want to play. But you know what? You have a reserve of minor league players who will play. It's like, I mean, you know, if the star player doesn't want to play, there's a million other people who will take that spot. You know, part of me is happy, but part of me is scared. Am I going to go to a game this year? No, and I don't think any of you should either. But you know, like, you know what? If we get baseball, we get baseball. I think we should celebrate that. It's a victory minus the risk that comes with it.
Rick, what do you want to say to this? I mean, with coronavirus closing the spring training facilities, and elaborate on what Louis is talking about.
I'm not surprised. I mean, people have totally forgotten about social distancing. People have totally forgotten about wearing masks. We've done a F rating on all this. You know, people just take it for granted. I'm not going to get it. Our arrogance has gotten away. You know, and I mean, it's going up like crazy. You know, and people just I think they just are tired of it and say, well, I'll just take that risk. But yet, it's hurting us. It's worse now than it was before. And for them to impose a season, I mean, I'm not going to go to a game. I mean, we don't have a Major League Baseball team here yet in North Carolina, but I wouldn't go, and I'm definitely not going to be in Arizona or Texas or Georgia or South Carolina or anywhere around there. So to me, it's just a waste. They should have canceled the season a long time ago. And then behind the scenes, they should have been working on a new CBA deal, because right now when people see that they're not going to play, they're going to say, well, I'm not going to play because of the coronavirus. But yet people are saying, no, they didn't want to play because these spoiled, entitled multimillionaires are greedy. And so, I mean, the season, I mean, we're just going to have a bunch of scat players. And if I was an MLB player and I have multi-million-dollars and I have a family, I ain't going to go play.
Okay, let's go on to our final topic of the evening, okay? We're going to talk about the Korea Baseball Organization, KBO. And I'm going to go over a bunch of different facts here, all right? And that's this. Altogether, 23 South Korean players have made it to the MLB as of 2020. I'm going to go over some of the key ones, and I want to talk about the American ties, all right, Louis? First of all, some key Korean players to MLB include Chan-Ho Park of the Dodgers. He played from 1994 to 2010 with 7 teams. Not a bad person. Now, the other one is Shin Soo-Choo for the
great player.
Right. What's that?
This is a great player. Texas Rangers, right. Cincinnati Reds, Cleveland Indians, and the Mariners.
Right. So he played for 4 teams. So you're not looking at these guys are really good ball players. Young Rin Ryu. I guess David Ledman was telling me, Scott, I'm glad I don't have to do the pronunciations of these.
Young Ryu. Yeah, the ERA champion last year in the National League.
Well, I knew you'd come up with stats. God bless, Louis. You're the stat man, okay? But yeah, he played for the Dodgers for 6 years.
Don't forget Hiroki Kuroda. I mean, great pitcher for a while with the Dodgers and the Yankees. Went back to pitch in Korea, I believe.
Folks, Louis Addeo-Weiss is putting on a clinic yet again for a guy that wasn't
with
KBO.
He's a Rain Man.
Yeah, all right, Rain Man, Stat Man, whatever. But anyways, he signed in 2020 for the Toronto, 7-time KBO All-Star, and an MLB All-Star for the Dodgers, another one. And then, of course, we can't forget Byung-Hyun Kim, who I ought to know well. I lived in Arizona back in 2001 when the Diamondbacks won the World Series. Obviously, Byung-Hyun Kim gave up those 2 key home runs, but nevertheless, the Diamondbacks still came away with the World Series championship. Now, let's continue to elaborate on that a little bit, and that's it. The KBO's been getting additional exposure. Just so you know, Louis, okay, Matt Williams is the manager of one of those teams now. Dixon Machado is now playing there. Eric Thames certainly resurrected his career in Korea and was a force with the Milwaukee Brewers. Mickey Callaway, the former New York Mets manager, spent some time out in Korea. Mike Coolbaugh, unfortunately, who was killed by getting hit by a line drive for the Rockies AA team. Spent some time up there. Jacob Turner of the Tigers and the Marlins. Of course, he's been around a lot of other teams. And then, of course, Anthony Swarzak played for the Milwaukee Brewers, Atlanta Braves, and a bunch of other ones. And then, of course, they've had new concepts where they had no fans, cheerleaders. And I got to give you a personal story, guys. When I went to the 1984 Olympics, I saw Korea take on the United States at Dodger Stadium, and that was my only time there. So what I'm telling you is this, okay, Louis? To me, the Korea Baseball Organization, got some great exposure, and for those diehard baseball fans, at least they had an opportunity to go ahead and watch something. I liked the way ESPN's presentation of it was, because you had, I think Eduardo Perez and a lot of their better announcers talking about Major League Baseball and tying the Korea team there. So I personally enjoyed it. Like you, Rick, anytime you get to see baseball, it's always a treat. And it was founded in 1982. So with all that said, Louis, you learned a little something about the KBO because you haven't been following it. What are your thoughts about the KBO in terms of what it's done during this slow period for baseball?
Well, I mean, I've also seen them. I'm glad they've been able to play at least a third of their season and had no outbreaks of cases, which is good. They haven't had to shut anything down because nobody's gotten sick. But you know what? Like, South Korea isn't populated the same way that the United States is, and just I think there's a lot more discipline among people in South Korea than there is in America. Obviously, the shopping malls are open again and people are walking around like maniacs without masks on and behaving like primitive, individuals. So people are going to get sicker here. I think, if baseball comes back here, and obviously we saw that it tentatively is, I just don't think it's going to last that long to where it's going to sustain itself for 60 games, upwards of 70, 80 days. Where we're not going to have people getting sick. I mean, look, like you said, and some of the players we discussed, the KBO has produced some very good major league talent. I mean, a lot that doesn't really get discussed. I mean, but is the product as interesting as Major League Baseball? No, but that's just the fact that obviously, players in Korea generally aren't as talented as, say, some of the best players in North America. And that's not a spite on them. I mean, baseball itself is an international game. Some of our best players are from, the Dominican Republic and other Latin American countries and other parts all over the world. I mean, Ichiro's from Japan, one of the most exciting players probably we've ever seen. So, but yeah, I mean, the talent, just like you said, baseball is baseball, and regardless of what facet it's in. But it's not I haven't been gripped with it. One, I'm not going to get up at 5 a.m. to watch a game. That's just not me. I'm not 87 years old, so I'm not watching baseball that early in the morning.
Is he criticizing us senior citizens? Really? I
no, I'm absolutely not. But again, it's just super early.
It's been on like at 9 too on Sundays in the morning.
Right. Yeah. What's your excuse there? 9 o'clock in the morning on Sunday.
But at the end of the day, I think it's just the product itself for me that's like not as stimulating. I've watched a few games here and there, but you kind of always want you see a cover band and you're like, oh, they're okay, but I want to see the real thing. And that's kind of like what it is with the KBO. The KBO is a good product. It's, for what it is, but it's not going to give you the same level of satisfaction, I think, that Major League Baseball is.
Of course not, Louis. I mean, come on. We're not talking no Hall of Fame players that played in the KBO. The league's only been around since 1982. All I can tell you is there's a quality of players that have gone over from here over to KBO so they can continue to play professionally, number one. Okay, so no, there are no Hall of Famers there, Louis. We both know that. And don't lose sight of the fact, Louis, that, as I mentioned to you before, that it has been a good feeder system for MLB when you consider that 23 South Korean players have made it to the MLB as of 2020. So, no, we're not going to see no Hall of Famers. No, we don't think there's going to be, at the level MLB is. I mean, you got Japan might be comparable to it, right, Louis? You have a lot of great players back and forth. But I'll tell you what, we've seen a lot with the KBO. We've seen the no fans. I'd like to think we've learned a lot from the KBO, don't you? As MLB and baseball gets going, that's what I would think. Louis, would you at least agree we've learned a lot from the KBO?
Absolutely. But as we've seen, baseball can they're kind of like that student. They'll go to a class, but they'll absorb nothing because we still fell on our face a million times before Manfred had to come out and issue a season after the PA denied a million proposals. But I mean, Rick said it best. We're going to get hurt by this really, really bad, and it scares me because I don't want to think about the inevitability of Major League Baseball like ever going away. But you know what? Like, if we continue to do things like this and we bring people into power that just don't kind of like at least exude authority and like instill that into the people it employs, then like this sport is going to drown, and that's horrifying to me. I don't want that to happen.
Well, let me tell you, Louis, okay, Rob Manfred can impose a 60-game season, but you know who's going to decide this whole thing? COVID-19. Let's see how many.
I agree.
Yeah, so impose it all you want. It's one thing to be able to think about doing it. Executing it's another story. And you know, I don't want to get off topic, but the NBA might be having some second thoughts with the uprising with COVID-19 in their bubble, but we won't get into that. I'm just making reference there. Impose it all you want, but COVID-19 is going to be the decider. You know, and that's all there is to it. So, anything you guys want to add to the broadcast? I think you both have done a phenomenal job. What about you, Rick?
Oh, I love the KBO for one thing. I think it's great. South Korea has very, very small percentage of outbreaks out there, so they can pull it off. People there actually are wearing masks. They care. You know, the president there actually took control of it, and they've had very, very small little outbreaks of it out there. So in South Korea, they're doing it right. I love seeing the teams out there because they're actually playing for the love of the game. Unlike Major League Baseball, it's all about money and greed and power. And good luck, Manfred. We're imposing that season because he's hated now like Goodell, and he lost a ton of respect after that horrific decision with the Astros where he didn't suspend them or didn't discipline them. So he lost a lot of respect, calling the World Series trophy a hunk of metal, and the players there absolutely despise him now. And I think he's more hated now than Goodell, and that's saying a lot. So
yes, man.
Yeah, and so good luck with that. Good luck with imposing that. And these multi-millionaire players, they ain't gonna go. We're gonna have a bunch of scrub players, and he just needs to cancel the season. And people are not gonna travel. They're gonna have to restrict travel. People are not going to go to Texas. People are not going to go to Georgia. People are not going to go to any of these places with these massive, massive outbreaks. No way it's going to happen. So we ain't going to have no season. I'm sorry. There ain't going to be no season.
Any closing thoughts, Louis?
I feel bad for the Texas Rangers. They were supposed to open a new ballpark this year, but I think that's going to have to wait until 2021.
Why is that?
I mean, who knows if, like Rick said, who knows if we're going to have a season this year?
Well,
what are they open that for?
Let's
have
just
like
say
a hockey game in November? I mean, like, nobody's going to want to, like, I mean, you know what, like, I'm not going to say Americans are stupid, but we're obviously not handling social distancing properly, so.
We're arrogant. We're very arrogant.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody's going out there and doing something ridiculous and getting sick, but I mean, look, man, I'm going to bed tonight with my fingers crossed that we can at least do something to have games this year, because if not, I am going to be staring at a ceiling for the next 6 months before spring training starts again, so.
Well, I think the Australian Baseball League should be starting soon, so you can watch that. But those games come out at 3 a.m.
I'll watch cricket and then curling before I do that, but, you know, that's a conversation for another day.
Well, yeah, but, you know, Louis, you could always get into cornhole, too. I mean, a lot of people...
I could, I do, but I won't totally disavow Australian baseball. Peter Moylan, Grant Balfour, Dave Nielsen, some good players that came from there. But again, all it comes back to the USA, baby. Give me some apple pie and Albert Pujols. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, we can't end it better on that note. With that said, Louis Addeo-Weiss, we're glad you're back on the broadcast. So you're going to lead it off and let people know how they can get a hold of you. Obviously, make sure you know that you're definitely a valuable part of our team here on the WSAN Network. And by the way, you are listening to 108 Stitches Baseball Talk here on the WSAN Network. So go ahead, Louis. Let people know how they can go ahead and get a hold of you. I'm sure I'll see some content coming your way when there is sports, right, Louis?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Addeo_Louis00. You can follow me on Instagram at Lou Ritos. It's a little play on a Doritos, but you know, never. I'm on Facebook at Louis Addeo-Weiss, and you can find my articles and a lot of my writers that I brought on South Florida Tribune's website.
All right, Rick, go ahead.
You can contact us on our website at www.charlottebats.com. Our email address is cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com. I'm also on LinkedIn under Rick Curti. I'm on Facebook at Charlotte MLB. Also on Charlotte Bats Baseball. Also on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball. And also on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. So you can contact me on any of those social media sites.
All right, with that said, I'll go ahead and wrap it up here by saying you can find us on Twitter at Tribune South. Facebook, you can like South Florida Tribune page. Instagram, South Florida Tribune. YouTube channel, which I'm adding more and more videos every week. I have something on there called Serene Sunday, which my wife Candy and I are working on, but Serene Sunday on the YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com, for which Louis has a big role in that. And the email here is southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And I can be found on LinkedIn, Scott Morgan Roth. Look me up there. You can also find the broadcast on southfloridatribune.com or wherever you get your podcast. So, guys, you were fantastic tonight. I really enjoyed doing this with you. So I look forward to bringing you back on, Louis, probably in about a couple weeks or so, right, pal?
Yeah, sounds good.
Looking forward to it. Welcome back to 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. And Rick, well, we get ready to go for Thursday with Mouth Fire, all right?
I look forward to it.
All right, on behalf of my dynamic duo tonight, this is Scott Morgan, Roth, the Motor City Madmouth, with wishing everybody a good evening, and we'll catch you the next time. Good night, everybody.
Take care.